Welcome, the chosen ones. Sometimes a single act isn't just a game changer, it's a paradigm shift that alters the very fabric of perception. Did you know that the human brain registers negative disruption with an intensity nearly 5 times greater than it does positive surprise? What you unleashed wasn't just observed. It etched itself into the recesses of their minds, a lasting testament to your power. You didn't merely ripple the waters, you dropped an earthquake into their carefully constructed reality, leaving tremors that reverberate with the stark reminder that you will never be viewed the same. They are forced to relive it. The gaze, the timing, the flawless execution, it replays in their heads like a scene from a movie they can't stop watching. And here's the fascinating paradox. They were so utterly convinced they had you perfectly mapped out, confined to a predictable, safe, and manageable role. But you didn't simply step outside the confines of their expectations. You shattered them with such force that their ego struggles to piece it back together. At this moment, you're residing rent-free in their thoughts. Not in some forgotten corner, but in the premier suite with an unobstructed panorama of their deepest insecurities and without so much as a down payment. What you enacted was not arbitrary. It was the kind of decisive action that reconfigures the energy landscape, rewrites narratives, and compels people to confront both you and themselves in a way that defies erasure. And that's the very reason they are captivated by you, because they know in their core that life will never be the same after what you did. First, you obliterated a pattern they were reliant upon. They believed they possessed an intricate map of your being, outlining familiar routes, well-defined markers, and anticipated stopping points. Perhaps for years, even your entire existence, they held an unwavering confidence in their understanding of how you would navigate various situations. If they exerted pressure, you would retreat. If they disregarded you, you would quietly absorb it. If they sought to manipulate outcomes, you would contort yourself to maintain harmony. This predictability was not merely reassuring for them. It constituted a hidden advantage they leveraged over you. They built their entire strategy on the assumption that you would never disrupt the established order. And then you did not merely tweak the pattern, you shattered it into fragments. You performed an action that completely defied their mental script for you. The very essence of broken patterns lies in their ability to generate mental pandemonium. People are loath to admit it, but much of their confidence stems from the belief that they can anticipate the actions of others. You decimated that safety net, and now they find themselves endlessly revisiting the moment, attempting to decipher when you resolve to rewrite the rules. The truly unsettling aspect for them is not solely the action you took, but the fact that you did so without seeking external validation. There was no preamble, no incremental escalation they could discern, no chance for them to brace themselves. One moment you were operating in accordance with the familiar rhythm they counted on. The next you were engaging in behavior so divergent from that rhythm that they felt as though they had been sleepwalking. Their shock isn't merely directed at you, it's compounded by embarrassment at their failure to foresee it. The power dynamic underwent an immediate transformation. Before, they may have perceived themselves as holding the upper hand, possessing the ability to predict and thereby manipulate the space between you. But once you disrupted the pattern, you introduced uncertainty. And uncertainty in the minds of those who believed they understood you is a dangerous and destabilizing force. Now they exhibit greater caution and hesitation even in minor interactions because they are uncertain if you will take another unexpected step. They will never openly concede this, but what you did compelled them to acknowledge that they never truly knew you at all. This realization lingers. It's not merely the action itself. It's the unsettling recognition that every version of you they previously believed in might have been a carefully constructed illusion. And that truth is something they will continue to ponder long after the moment has faded. Second, you revealed a facet of yourself that defies recontainment. There are defining moments when someone unveils a dimension of their being that fundamentally alters how they are perceived. That's precisely what transpired with you. You showcased a version of yourself that cannot be unseen, and the gravity of that revelation continues to weigh heavily on their minds. This wasn't a superficial alteration or a fleeting display of audacity. It was a comprehensive unveiling of a part of you that had existed all along, concealed beneath layers of patience, restraint, and the generous extension of the benefit of the doubt. With that layer now peeled away, the familiar version of you they were accustomed to engaging with has vanished. What unsettles them is the palpable sense of permanence. You didn't simply have a passing moment. You conveyed, whether explicitly or implicitly, that this is the authentic you now, a being sharper, stronger, and far less tolerant of the things you once endured. They are unable to confine you back into the box they had constructed for you because that box no longer exists. And the fact that you underwent this transformation without their input or control leaves them profoundly uneasy. For those who tailored their interactions with you based on your former self, this is a complete reset they did not authorize. They must now approach you with greater care, weigh their words more deliberately, and reevaluate their approach to interacting with you. Every conversation, every encounter moving forward is filtered through the lens of what they have now witnessed. It's not paranoia on their part. It's an acknowledgement that the balance of power has shifted in irreversible ways. What truly resonates with them is the ease with which you embraced this shift. You didn't force it, you didn't over-explain it. You simply presented yourself as the more genuine, unfiltered version of yourself. And there's an inherent power in authenticity that leaves a more lasting impression than anything else. They cannot reassure themselves by dismissing it as a mere act because deep down they recognize its genuineness. Now, whenever they contemplate you, this newer, stronger version is the only image that surfaces. They may yearn for the old you, the one they could predict or influence, but they understand that there is no return. And that understanding is what keeps their thoughts fixated on you as they grapple with how to interact with a version of you they cannot control. Third, you forced them to confront their own vulnerabilities. What you executed didn't just leave an impression. It exposed a truth they were unprepared to face. You didn't merely act with boldness. You exposed the inherent fragility of their own being. People navigate the world adorned with layers of self-assurance, authority, and control, but much of that is a carefully curated facade. When you acted with such force, it stripped away that veneer, revealing a foundation far more precarious than they would ever acknowledge. They want to believe they are invincible, that nothing can truly unsettle them, but your actions resonated in a way that made them question the depth of their confidence. It's one thing to hear of strength or resilience. It's another to stand in its presence and witness its manifestation. And that's precisely what you provided. You offered them a palpable, undeniable example of a strength that does not waver, prompting them to question their own fortitude. They likely anticipated hesitation, collapse, or a cautious retreat into safety, as most people do when subjected to intense pressure. Instead, you navigated the situation with a clarity and decisiveness they did not believe you possessed. That's the genesis of the shock. It wasn't just the action you took. It was the fact that you did so without exhibiting any signs of fear. They were suddenly confronted with the unsettling possibility that they might not have been able to handle the situation in the same manner. This is the element that continues to linger for them. Each time they revisit the situation, they find themselves drawing comparisons between themselves and you. And in that introspective comparison, they consistently fall short. That's a difficult pill for anyone's ego to swallow, especially if they have always perceived themselves as strong or in control. The truth is, you didn't just survive an ordeal. You navigated it with a composure that shattered their illusions about themselves. It's not that they harbor animosity toward you because of it. It's that they cannot escape the mirror you held up to them in that moment. They saw the fissures in their own armor, and now they are acutely aware of them. That awareness is slow to dissipate, and it's the reason you continue to occupy their thoughts. You didn't merely make a move, you revealed a truth they cannot forget. Fourth, you demonstrated the idleness of their assumptions. They were under the impression that they had you all figured out, and the worst part is they didn't even invest the effort to truly see you. Their perception of you was based on hasty judgments, half-heard narratives, and fragmented glimpses of yourself that you inadvertently revealed in their presence. They pieced together a shallow profile in their minds and treated it as immutable fact. To them, there was no need to delve deeper. They had already predetermined your limitations, your strengths, and your weaknesses. That's the pitfall of lazy assumptions. They allow people to believe in their correctness without ever testing their premise. Then you went and did something that didn't merely nudge their perception, it shattered it into fragments. In that instant, everything they believed to be true about you was proven wrong, and not in a subtle way. The disparity between their assumptions and the reality you presented was so vast that it propelled them into mental overdrive. Now they are trapped, reliving the moment, trying to ascertain where they erred and how they overlooked so much about you. For some, the embarrassment outweighs the shock. It's humbling to acknowledge that you were wrong about someone, especially when you never extended them the benefit of the doubt in the first place. You have made them aware that they weren't merely wrong, they were careless, their judgment of you. And when that kind of truth hits, it lingers. They cannot return to the comfort of their former opinion because you have made it impossible to sustain that belief. What unsettles them most is knowing this wasn't a one-time occurrence. You didn't merely shatter their assumptions. You established a precedent that you are far more complex, capable, and unpredictable than they gave you credit for. That means they can no longer rely on the simplified version of you they carried in their minds. From now on, every interaction will carry the weight of that realization, the awareness that there's more to you than meets the eye, and that they have already underestimated you once. That's why it continues to replay in their minds. You didn't just surprise them. You forced them to acknowledge that they never truly knew you at all. And once someone realizes that they can't look at you or themselves the same way again. Fifth, you shifted the power dynamic without seeking permission. Power is something most people believe must be granted, that you must be invited to occupy space, speak with authority, or assume leadership. They assume there's a procedure, a discussion, or some form of approval before that shift can occur. But you didn't await permission. You didn't ask anyone if it was acceptable. You simply acted in a way that made it clear that you were no longer playing a supporting role in your environment, and just like that, the balance shifted. The distinction between seizing power and being granted power is immense. When you seize it through decisive action, there's no opportunity for others to dictate the terms or impose limitations. That's what makes it so unsettling for them. They didn't have the luxury of easing into this change. They didn't get to shape it, and they certainly didn't get to prepare for it. One moment they were operating in an environment where they felt in control, and the next they were reacting to you rather than the other way around. That realization stings. It compels them to acknowledge that whatever authority they believed they held over you was only as strong as your willingness to comply. The moment you ceased playing by their rules, the structure they were relying on crumbled. And because this wasn't accomplished through confrontation alone, but through undeniable action, they cannot dismiss it. The shift didn't stem from words, it came from proof. Now they are trapped in a loop, replaying the precise moment they sensed that change. It's not just about what you did, it's about how it made them feel, that sudden awareness that they were no longer the center of control. Power dynamics are deeply psychological, and once the hierarchy shifts in someone's mind, it's almost impossible to reverse it. The most unsettling aspect for them is knowing it wasn't a stroke of luck. You acted from a place of conviction, not desperation, which means you can replicate it. They can't predict when, they can't prevent it, and they can't undo the fact that everyone in that environment now perceives you differently. That's why they can't let it go, because the power shift wasn't confined to the moment. It's permanent. Sixth, you made their covert competitions glaringly obvious. Some people will never openly admit that they perceive you as a competitor, but you can sense it in the subtle ways they behave around you. The veiled remarks, the need to subtly one-up you, the inexplicable tension when you achieve something. For them, it has been a silent, private game, one where they secretly tallied points, confident they were ahead or at least close enough to maintain a sense of control. Then you executed an action that exposed that entire unspoken game to the light. You didn't merely win a round, you took a step that made it clear that they were never truly in your league to begin with. The gap between you and them became undeniable in that moment, and what burns the most is that you weren't even participating in their game in the first place. That's the source of the humiliation they can't shake, realizing that they have been expending energy competing with someone who didn't even acknowledge the race. You weren't observing their moves. You weren't pursuing the same goals they were, and you certainly weren't comparing yourself to them. You were simply progressing in your own direction, and yet your progress has overshadowed their efforts without any conscious effort on your part. When someone engages in covert competition, their self-esteem is contingent on the belief that they are close to matching or surpassing you. But when you establish such a clear and undeniable distance that pride suffers a direct hit, it's akin to a private scoreboard they have been updating for years, suddenly illuminating with the truth, and the truth is that they have been losing badly. Now every time they think about you, it's not just about what you did, it's about what it exposed. You revealed the game they were playing, and once a hidden competition becomes visible, it's impossible to deny its existence. They are left with the discomfort of knowing that they have been competing in secret and losing in public without anyone but themselves to blame. The irony is you didn't intend to embarrass them. You simply made a move that was authentic to you. And in doing so, you forced them to confront the reality of their current standing. And now that the truth is out, it's a truth they will continue to stumble over every time your name is mentioned. Seventh, you proved that the fear of loss does not dictate your actions. Most people are unaware of the extent to which their lives are governed by fear until they encounter someone living without it. They will mask it with euphemisms such as being responsible or thinking things through. But beneath the surface, the truth is simple. They are afraid of losing something. It might be their reputation, their comfort, their financial security, or even the approval of those around them. That fear dictates their choices to a degree they will never admit. Then you emerged and made a decision that violated that unspoken rule. You didn't cling to something merely because it was familiar, safe, or expected. You were willing to release it not recklessly, but with a full understanding of the implications because it no longer aligned with your truth. That's not a move most people can even fathom making, and it shakes them to their core. What unsettles them isn't just what you relinquished, but the manner in which you did so. There was no pleading, no desperate attempt to hold on, no compromise of your principles for the sake of maintaining comfort. You demonstrated that your integrity, your peace, and your authenticity outweigh the fear of loss. That kind of mindset poses a threat to those who have structured their lives around preserving what they possess at any cost. When they witness someone like you acting from that place of freedom, it prompts them to question their own lives. If you can walk away from something they themselves are terrified to lose, then perhaps they are the ones trapped, not you. That realization is uncomfortable because it implies that the safety they are clinging to isn't strength. It's a cage. And here's the element: they will never openly admit they admire it. Even if it frightens them deep down, they yearn to operate with the same level of self-trust. But instead of acknowledging it, they fixate on you. They replay the decision, attempting to understand how you found the courage they can't seem to access. That's why you remain in their thoughts. You didn't merely make a bold move. You proved that the fear of loss holds no dominion over you. And for those who are ruled by that fear, there's nothing more intimidating than someone who has already mastered the art of letting go. 8th, you eliminated their favorite justification. Most people rely on excuses to safeguard their self-image. They tell themselves stories such as, "If only I had the time," or "If the circumstances were different, I could have done it too." Those stories allow them to feel capable without ever forcing them to take action. Excuses serve as a shield, and for many it's easier to cling to the shield than to confront the reality of effort, risk, or discomfort. Then you stepped into the very same conditions they claim are insurmountable and flourished. You didn't await perfect alignment of circumstances. You didn't demand ideal timing, and you didn't rely on others to make it easier. You utilized what you had in the very same context they decry, and you made it succeed. That's a dose of reality that cuts deeper than criticism. It strips away the very thing they have been clinging to feel justified. Now they are caught in a mental loop. Their excuse, the one they have repeated to themselves ad nauseum to avoid taking action, holds no weight in the face of your accomplishment. It's not merely inconvenient for them, it's humiliating in the quietest, most personal way. They can't say, "I could have done it too," because deep down they know you have proven otherwise. The frustrating part for them is that you didn't engage in anything flashy or extreme. You simply operated effectively within the limitations they believed would stymie anyone. That's the sting, the recognition that it wasn't luck, it wasn't cheating, and it wasn't extraordinary circumstances. You succeeded where they imagined they would have failed, and that demolishes the narrative they have been comfortable telling themselves. From now on, whenever they reflect on their own potential, your action serves as the benchmark they can't disregard. They are compelled to acknowledge that success doesn't necessitate perfect conditions, only decisive action and unwavering commitment. And that acknowledgement is uncomfortable because it throws into stark relief how much of their life has been dictated by excuses rather than effort. You didn't just accomplish something remarkable, you removed the safety net of their self-justifications. That's why they can't stop thinking about you. You proved a truth they can't refute. Limitations are often self-imposed, and anyone willing to act within them can leave those who hesitate behind. 9th, you exposed how reliant they were on your predictability. For a long time, people believed they knew exactly how you would respond in any given situation. That assumption provided them with a sense of power, the idea that if they could predict your actions, they could steer outcomes, manage reactions, and maintain control. They depended on your patterns, your habits, your tendencies. Your predictability became a hidden anchor they clung to without even recognizing it. Then you did something that completely defied their expectations. You acted in a manner that shattered the rhythm they had grown accustomed to. Every forecast they had made about you, every assumption they had used to feel secure, suddenly became worthless. The rules they thought applied no longer existed, and that impacted them more profoundly than any direct confrontation could have. The unsettling truth they are left with is simple. They cannot anticipate you. And if they cannot anticipate you, they cannot control you. That's a terrifying realization for someone who has built their confidence on knowing your boundaries, predicting your choices, or assuming they could manipulate situations to their advantage. Suddenly, the stability they counted on has vanished, and there's no guidebook to replace it. What makes it linger even more is that you didn't announce it or make a spectacle of it. You just acted according to your own understanding, your own timing, and your own priorities. That subtlety makes the unpredictability permanent. They can't dismiss it as a fluke, because every time they try to gauge you again, you demonstrate that your actions are independent of their expectations. Now every interaction with you carries a subtle tension for them. They have to pause, reconsider, and adjust constantly, because the old shortcuts, the assumptions, the patterns, the predictable you no longer apply. So there you have it. The power of disrupting expectations isn't about being intentionally disruptive. It's about authentically stepping into your own power and acting in alignment with your truth. It's about showing up as the full, unfiltered version of yourself, even when it rattles the cages of others. It's a journey that not only transforms your own life, but also forces those around you to reevaluate their perceptions, assumptions, and even their own vulnerabilities. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on this. Have you experienced something similar in your own life, either as the one shattering expectations or as someone who's had their world rocked by someone else? Leave a comment down below, share your story, ask a question, or just join the discussion. I'd love to hear from you. And if you found this insightful and want to explore more ideas about personal growth, authentic living, and breaking free from limiting beliefs, don't forget to subscribe. That way you won't miss any of the upcoming videos. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching.